Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Cosmic Culture, the channel where we talk all things major movie and television news, theories, breakdowns, and much more. I'm your host Chris, and today we have a bit of a Marvel mega blast for you. There's a lot of awesome news happening, and with the hype and excitement of She-Hulk dropping last night, I know that you may not have caught all of these news updates. So, we're going to talk a little bit about She-Hulk, but also about the updates coming for The Punisher, who is now rumored to show up in the Daredevil series, which was announced at San Diego Comic-Con, the new Madam Web movie in the Sony SpiderMan picture universe, but there are some important connections to the MCU with this, especially now that we know about Secret Wars, and then lastly, and most excitingly, the X-Men updates. There's a huge rumor going around that Kevin Feige is planning the next Marvel Studios saga, and it is mainly going to focus on mutants in the MCU. So we're talking about the mutants coming up in Phase 6, but even more likely Phase 7, 8, and 9, as they might be the centerpiece of the third saga. So if you want to hear all of these awesome updates, be sure to follow to the end of the video, as I will be grouping it all together and giving you the news. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our other major movie and television news updates happening daily here on the channel. You can also follow me on my other socials, Instagram at Chris M. Rosser and Twitter at TheCultureChris. Links to both of these are in the description down below. So with that being said, what did you guys think about She-Hulk? The first episode was released last night, and although I've had the opportunity to watch the first 4, I'm very curious on what you guys thought about the origin story for She-Hulk. She's now going to be, I believe, a very prominent character in the MCU, a mantle character who's going to carry the weight of maybe the Avengers, maybe have some type of involvement with the young Avengers as well, as she might be some type of mentor for them, given her intelligence level, her strength, and her self-control, which was made apparent during the first episode. So let me know in the comment section down below, are you excited for She-Hulk? Did you enjoy the first episode? Or are you a little weary still about the Disney Plus shows? I will say, having seen 4 episodes, that this series has more cameos, connections, and a wider range surrounding the current status of the MCU than just what's going on with She-Hulk and who is She-Hulk. So hopefully you'll be excited for that. Now, for the other crazy Marvel moves that's going on, let's talk about The Punisher. Now, this is something I know a lot of you are excited for, and that's based off of how excited people were for Daredevil joining the MCU. Now, without a question, I think it's pretty well established that the Daredevil series on Netflix was the best out of all of the Defenders. However, everybody is excited for the Punisher. He's a dark character, he's a fun character, and he definitely packs a punch as far as these street level characters are concerned. Kevin Feige during San Diego Comic-Con, while being interviewed by MTV, kind of recategorized the different sections of the MCU. And he called one section the street level, which is SpiderMan, Daredevil, The Punisher. These are all characters that are going to be the Avengers based and involved with what's happening in New York City or California or different parts of the Earth problems. So I think it's something very fun to know that the Punisher is supposedly appearing in Daredevil Born Again. Now this has come to us from Can We Get Some Toast? And the expectation is that this would be the same actor that played the Punisher in the Netflix series, as they are kind of doing this soft reboot, rebringing characters over, and although it hasn't been necessarily explained or smoothed over, I think it's all going to make a lot of sense, whether they do use the multiverse to explain it, or that the characters that existed in the Netflix series are just variants, and these are the characters that exist in the MCU. I'm sure there's a very easy and clean explanation there for that. But I would be excited to see the Punisher and the implications of the dark tones, which we've gotten a taste for in Moon Knight or in Falcon and the Winter Soldier through US Agent and several other projects, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness with the horror vibes, the dark tones that are on the horizon for the MCU. The Punisher would definitely be involved in bringing those more to light. Now, while we're talking about variants and different characters within the multiverse, I think it's important now to turn our attention over to the Sony Pictures Spider-Man Super Universe. The name's constantly changing. However, there is an important project coming to us through Madam Web. Now, Madam Web in the comics has connections to the multiverse, and this is a huge project for Sony to potentially introduce new Spider-Man, revitalize a little bit of the entire project that they've been working on. We know following Morbius that there's not necessarily a lot of confidence in their capability to run the Spider-Man franchise, But the rumor is that Adam Scott is reportedly playing a young Uncle Ben in the Madam Web movie. Fans of Parks and Rec or any of Adam Scott's other projects will be very happy to hear his involvement, but I think it's very cool because this does go hand in hand with the recent rumor that we're going to be getting a very young toddler Peter Parker. Now, this will be a variant of Peter Parker in the Madam Web movie, but this goes even further than just the Sony projects. This very easily connects to Secret Wars in the MCU. We've already seen 2 other Peter Parkers not from the MCU in Spider-Man No Way Home, and I would very much bet you, based off of the success of that project, how excited everybody was, the fans getting behind it, and the overall enjoyment that we had seeing multiple Spider-Men on screen, that they're planning on bringing them back for Secret Wars. But also other Peter Parkers. Miles Morales is somewhere out there on the horizon, and this toddler Peter Parker could just be a simple indication of other Peter Parkers, other variants of Spider-Man that we might be able to see come Secret Wars. So overall, although I know that most of the confidence that you guys have in Sony to run the Spider-Verse isn't necessarily at an all-time high, any type of introduction of a Spider-Man does have implications to Secret Wars and the inclusion of more Spider-Man. So that's always very fun. Now we have to talk about the big one, the exciting one, a rumor coming from Daniel RPK's Patreon, and he is a very reliable source, talking about President of Marvel Studios Kevin Feige and his plans to include the next saga of the MCU, so following the multiverse saga, following Phase 6, a huge part of mutants. Now, this is something that has begun in the MCU unequivocally. We've gotten our first Easter eggs, our first references, and arguably our first mutant through Ms. Marvel, and the inclusion of quote-unquote the first ever mutant, as he's referred to in the comics, with Namor in Black Panther 2. Obviously, we don't have an exact understanding of how Namor will be addressed, if it'll simply be a teaser, or if they're going to talk about this a little bit more as well. He is older than Ms. Marvel, so just because Ms. Marvel appeared first doesn't mean that she is the first mutant. Namor very well could take that same role as he is in the comics as the first mutant, and they can go even further into explaining where, why, and how, what the role of all these mutants is going to be moving forward. Keep in mind that we have pretty much the entire Phase 5 slate. I wouldn't be surprised if there were a few shorts or projects that weren't necessarily announced or given to us. Sony's going to introduce Spider-Man, not Disney, so there could be some more stuff there, but the meat of it has been announced. Fantastic Four have been announced for Phase 6, so it's possible we might get an X-Men project following that, somewhere towards the middle of Phase 6, but the entirety, the meat, the biggest portion of the X-Men and mutants is not going to be told in 1 or 2 movies before we get to Secret Wars. This will be the very beginning, and based off of the news that we have from Daniel RPK, coming from the rumors of Kevin Feige and his plan, we could be having a mutants saga on our hands. Although many people are believing that we're going to have a Galactus or a cosmic saga following the multiverse saga, it's possible we might cool the jets just a little bit and take a really deep and detailed dive into mutants. One of the more popular groups from the X-Men comics, and certainly one that is extremely well known thanks to all the Fox projects, the animated series, and yes, the comic books. We all know that the mutants are going to be a huge centerpiece somewhere in the MCU at some point. And although yes, they are starting to reveal themselves and we're getting different references and Easter eggs, there will be specific and massive projects, series, movies, all explaining what the mutants are and their involvement in the MCU. And I wouldn't be surprised if we had a whole saga dedicated simply to the XMen Saga, creating this team and having all sorts of different mutant wars between mutants and the people of Earth. I just think that that would be a really spectacular thing to see in fine detail done properly by Marvel Studios. So following that rumor, I'm just really excited to hear more about the mutants, and I think our next connection to them very well will be in Black Panther, but I wouldn't mind even hearing a really small grumbling about something going on with people's DNA being genetically changed in SheHulk, since it does heavily involve the US government, some new organizations that are doing litigation against superheroes, so there's always room to hear a few Easter eggs about that during SheHulk as well. Overall, lots of stuff coming from Marvel, and we have Disney Plus Day and D23 happening just in September here around the corner, so turn on your notification bell, guys, because you don't want to miss out on any of the major news we're sharing. If you haven't already, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys all in the next one right here on Cosmic Culture.